So you've launched your nutrition practice. You're getting a good steady stream of clients, and people are liking your stuff on social media. And suddenly, the haters flood in. What the heck do you do about that? And what is that all about in the first place? My name's Sheena, and I've been running a dietitian private practice for the last decade, and I help other dietitians to grow and scale their practices. So, the first thing that I want you to know is haters are the cost of admission to success for a thriving private practice. If you don't like haters and aren't willing to deal with a little bit of dissatisfaction, do not go into private practice. So, with that out of the way, how do we actually grow that thick skin in order to help us not feel completely overwhelmed when these comments bombard us? So, a few tips and tricks. What I do want to preface this with is I have kind of an unfair advantage here as I was a very unpopular kid growing up in middle and high school. So I had to grow a very thick skin early on and just do what I wanted to do despite the haters coming at me constantly. So for me, a lot of this stuff has gone in one ear and out the other throughout the duration of my career. And I'm going to kind of teach you how to do the same thing. The first thing that I want you to think about is if you've ever seen that movie, the Elvis movie, he has actually a great tactic for this. The manager starts to flood in all of this swag that says, I hate Elvis. And Elvis says, why would we want to be promoting hating Elvis? And the marketing representative responds, somebody is going to generate revenue from this. It's either going to be us or our competitors. And thus, they sold swag that said, I hate Elvis, though they were promoting Elvis himself. And I just thought that is a great example of this. And we're going to dig into some of the ways that we can capitalize off our haters. And that is my favorite thing to do. So, the first thing that I want you to know about haters is they're actually a great way to success for your business. Every time somebody comments something negative on your social media posts, emails, etc., they're engaging with your content. And guess what? Social media platforms love this. So it's actually going to boost you in the algorithm to have those haters commenting and even potentially responding. I definitely wouldn't encourage you to argue or try to make your point with these haters. It's just probably pretty much pointless. You're not in the convincing business. Your job as a successful entrepreneur is actually just to attract the right people and repel the wrong people, which are your haters. But we can use that to our advantage when we are repelling the wrong people as they are engaging in our platform. And you might even notice that the right people begin engaging in that dialogue, which stimulates an entire conversation. So use your haters to your advantage. And another way that haters are actually advantageous to you is that it actually strengthens your stance. Somebody that stands for everything actually stands for nothing. So try not to be completely vanilla and totally neutral. We at least want to have a little bit of stance one way or the other on whatever we're marketing in our private practices. And trust me, everything is controversial. We might think we're just a weight loss dietitian or we are just focusing on eating disorders, but everybody has an opinion about that. And especially in the nutrition field, because everyone eats food, so everyone thinks that they are an expert. Even if you were talking about peanut butter and jelly sandwiches being a great snack, somebody's going to jump on there and say, yeah, but only if you use strawberry organic jam. And there you go. There's a controversy. So you just simply are not going to get away from them. Now, where we tend to get hung up is if we believe that any of these words that are harshly said to us have any merit. Now, hear me out. If somebody were to come up to you on your social media as you're showing yourself with some B roll, walking down the street, something like that, and said, wow, you are just really terrible at walking, you're probably just going to go, that person is probably a little bit nutso because I've been walking for a long time and I'm pretty confident that I am skilled at this. But when we're trying something new, we feel like a little bit of an imposter sometimes, anyways. And so, therefore, we might start to really dig ourselves deep into these negative comments. Don't do that. We are just expressing ourselves. We are just sending our message out there, and the right people need you to share that message, and the wrong people are not going to like you anyways. Do not try to convince them. Another thing that can really help you in just feeling a little bit more comfortable as these haters come up is just to know that it's a lot more natural for somebody to judge you negatively before they align with your messaging. This is just human nature. This is how we protect ourselves. We're always going to be skeptical when it comes to giving away our time or money because we're trying to make the best decision. So if you lead in with something that's a little bit controversial, someone's first instinct is going to be to judge you negatively. But as you show up more and more, those right people are going to align with you and are going to want to work with you. And the last thing that I want to say about this is that nobody actually gives a shit about you. This is my best tip for business advice. Everybody is too busy thinking about themselves and whether or not you can help them solve their problem. I promise you, no one doing better than you is judging your content. They're probably not even looking at it. They're not sitting there critically analyzing you. It's those people that are potentially maybe scared to go out and venture on their own and do the things that you're doing, or are already thinking really negatively about themselves that are going to want to start controversy and say negative things to you. Very favorite thing to do with hate mail or hate comments is to actually just kind of repurpose these to make my branding even stronger. Now, here's some of the ways that I do this. I get a lot of hate mail because I work in the weight neutral space, and there's a lot of opinions for it. You either love it or you hate it. So I get a lot of hate mail. I've been fat shamed more than anyone on the planet. Now, I do want to note that I do realize that I live in a thin body and I do have a lot of thin privilege here. So, a lot of these comments do just kind of in one ear, out the other, and they don't faze me much. And I've also had a lot of practice with lots of bullies. So, here's how I use hate mail. Now, one of my favorite messages that I got was, "Who the fuck are you and why are you emailing me about how fat and self centered you are? Listen, you fat cunt. Stop eating shit all day like a fat piece of shit, and you'll be able to do more with your life than writing spam emails and begging for acceptance rather than getting on with your life. Your problems belong to you alone. Unsubscribe me from your shit." Now, this sounds very harsh, but what I do is I use this as a teaching opportunity. All this hate mail that comes in, I actually dissect it as evidence of how the world is simply fat phobic to really further highlight my haze aligned messaging. And then I screenshot it and I regenerate that as a new email. I call it Hate Mail Mondays out to my list of thousands and thousands of subscribers. And what this does is it helps me to empathize with some of these individuals that are struggling with these really harsh and negative comments themselves, and really helps me to really build that community. So I choose to repurpose a lot of this hate mail. Now, this is really trick. It's something that can be really hard to do, especially as you're first getting into the field. But just know there's lots of opportunities with haters. Now, another example of haters that not all of you may experience is one of my pieces of content was actually published in the LA Times. From there, it was a pretty controversial post, and so a famous YouTuber actually picked it up and spent an entire 10-minute roasting session just basically telling the world how my content was and my ideas were complete garbage. Did I take offense to that? Absolutely not. Lots of people were driven to my site from that very famous YouTuber just basically shitting all over my content. So the right people still chose to pursue that and still learn something from my content, and even though the original attention was from a very famous hater. So, all of these incidences of haters can actually be very beneficial to your business, but we do really need to develop that thick skin and realize that these haters have nothing to do with us and we shouldn't be taking these things personally. If you have any experience with this or questions, definitely drop it in the comments below. I'm sure others have shared some of your experiences or have similar questions. So I do respond to those all personally. If you found this content helpful, please like, subscribe, and share it with